Last week on the Al Nicoletti Show. Joe, there's the land trust guy. What's going on, man?
That is probably the best intro I've ever had for me on a podcast.
Why would an investor want to even do the land trust?
It's really a consumer protection, but it's also a selling point to get over an objection. Also, it gives you another exit strategy on the back end as the investor. One of the things you can do if it's in the land trust is you can go, okay, well, I'm going to now conditionally assign my conditional assignment to the next person, except mine is going to be conditioned that they're going to pay me.
Can you really ever have that full anonymity and that full way of that nobody can truly find you?
This is another great reason to put your property into a land trust with a third-party trustee, because we get all the text of, I want to buy your property, I want to sell you this property, phone calls, voicemails. They send letters to my house. We signed up an account with deleteme.com. They use human beings and they go out to 700 plus data brokers across the internet, and they scrub your information out. And as that happens, that provides you more anonymity.
That right there is a great golden nugget. Why should I hire an attorney? Why should I get a lawyer? I mean, for us, it's really easy answer. You're paying us to do it the right way. I think someone like you talking about this is so valuable to somebody listening that is interested in starting and doing more deals and maybe finding different ways to structure their deals.
And I tell people it comes down to control versus anonymity. So then you don't want the anonymity, but you want to maintain control and you want to build this brand. That's, the big difference that I've always found between buying and selling properties in your LLC directly versus using the land trust as that anonymous intermediary between you and the rest of the world.
Thank you so much for coming on the Al Nicoletti Show. We loved having you.
Thanks for having me, and I hope nobody had to break open their Red Bull to get through it.
I'm sure they're drinking a lot of coffee and they're going to go back and watch this and have that Red Bull just for you, Joe. Man, what an episode that was last week. If you missed any of that episode, you got to go back and check it out. You got to scan the QR code at the top of the screen. You can find all of our content when you scan that QR code. You'll find everything from the YouTube channel, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. There's so much education out there from the guests that you want to go back and check out some of these guests that have been on season 5, season 4, and go back to season 1, because there may be tips and tricks that you can learn from these guests that you can implement in your business today. And don't forget to check out all the content on probates, quiet titles, and all the other education that's out there of the videos that we are putting out there. This is where it's at. This is what it's all about. Giving back and providing that education back to you so you can take action today. I am super excited to introduce our guest today, James Lascara. Like, this guy is great at what he does. He is killing it in the community space. He's killing it in the real estate space. And what I've been witnessing him doing by putting these groups together and getting everybody in the same room, shaking hands, that's what this is about, is getting the right people in the right rooms at the right time. And James is somebody that is doing that today. And it's going to be a great episode. And I know a lot of you are going to want to take notes, learn from this. And especially if you're in the area that James is hosting these groups in, you definitely want to be a part of it and go. Highly recommend it. I've seen photos online. There's a lot of people there, the guests and the speakers that they're bringing. You don't want to miss it. So this is going to be exciting. I got my pen. I got my paper. I probably had a lot of coffee, and we're live. So ask your questions, engage. That's what we love about the show. Engage, like and comment, ask questions, because this is what we want for you. We want you to be able to answer these things on the show. So let's rock this thing. Hey, everybody, my name is Al Nicoletti. I'm an attorney here in Florida, and welcome to the Al Nicoletti Show, where I bring on real estate super investors, rising rock stars, movers and shakers, and leaders of clubs in their communities that educate, entertain, and inspire all things on Florida real estate. And we are always going to provide the best in the game to you, no matter what industry they're in, whether it's real estate or real estate adjacent, whether it's Airbnbs, land, commercial, shopping centers, self-storage units, marketing, branding, you name it, on how you can take your company to the next level. Man, we are rolling with the show, and season 6 is taking off. It's crazy that we are in season 6, and the guests that we've had, this is truly amazing for us to be able to bring these people on. And when we get to bring on somebody that was a core idea of mine when we started the show. We wanted to bring on not just investors, not just professionals, but community leaders, real estate community leaders. Everybody that hears my opening, that's one of the prongs. The community leaders, this is where everything happens. And James Lascara can really dive in on what it means to have that leadership, build the community, what it means to be a part of the community, and what things are going on in real estate that you need to know today. You're going to love this guy. You got to take notes. And I want to welcome him on the show. So without further ado, let's welcome him onto the show. James, you're the man, and love seeing you, brother.
Al, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited. I'm humbled to be on your show. You bring so much enthusiasm. I'm stoked.
I'm stoked for you, brother. I'm stoked. The elite investor and the club that you have going on in the Tampa, St. Pete area is taking off. Love seeing it, and we'll dive in on that. I got to know a little bit about the James adventure into real estate and what that journey was like for you to where you've gotten today.
Yeah, absolutely. Bought my first house in 2014. I spent 15 years in the military, and so I immediately went on deployment after buying my first house. Came back and kind of stumbled into house hacking, house hacked and did a little bit of passive investing for a few years, moved to Tampa in 2019, and then just took my foot, stomped it on the gas pedal, and got really, really involved in the entrepreneurship journey and real estate investing. Started a few companies, which has led to now and us really growing this in 2025.
Amazing. What I gotta ask, because you're really on the ground level. You're not just doing there's some people that just handle coaching. There's some people that handle mentoring, but you're really a guy that's on the ground doing deals every day with people. Where are you seeing the market at for 2025 for real estate investors, whether they're new or seasoned?
Yeah. Okay. So I focus a lot on our localized market here in Tampa. So you got to realize, like, we just came off of two pretty substantial hurricanes that definitely affects things. I think there's a lot of buyers out there that are looking for a reprieve on interest rates. And so even for myself, like, I thought the market would be a little bit stronger in Q1 2025 than what we're seeing today. And so I think it's going to continue to be dynamic. I wish I had a crystal ball. I think we're going to continue to see a little bit of market softening perhaps, but that's just an opportunity to pick up good deals. So by the way, if I would add, what I'm doing to kind of mitigate that is now more than ever, I'm just making sure on the acquisition, I'm really buying it right. I think that's very, very important right now.
Yeah, and I'm sure being very cautious with those interest rates and the insurance as well. Because like markets like Cape Coral and Naples, that area, the insurance rates have gone really high, and some insurance companies have even pulled out. And even now in St. Pete and Clearwater, I'm sure since the storms came through, that's going to be a consideration for a lot of deals as well. Because I'm sure there's people that want to sell now because they don't want to pay those high rates. But now, what does that mean for you guys? You know, what does that mean in terms of your deals?
Yeah, so I never did things in flood zones, and the reason why is what we just saw at the tail end of 2024, right? Flood zones, not only do you have higher insurance costs with mandatory flood insurance if you have a mortgage, but they also flood. And so that was always part of my calculus. I just don't ever want to deal with the floods. So unless I plan to demolish a project and take it vertical with new construction, I just don't really do flood zones. So if for people who are doing stuff in flood zones, you got to really know the FEMA 50 rule. Like, that's critical. If you don't know that, it could be a catastrophic risk that you're not realizing that you're taking. And then, no, not really any flipped properties can produce the accurate ARV because we don't know yet. And so I just think it's especially in those more affected localized areas, it's a pretty substantial risk. I'll tell you one more thing that we're doing. Maybe this brings value to some viewers here, but we have a development business in Tampa, and we were constructing the projects, bringing on a GC per project and going vertical with them and selling the finished units. Now what I'm doing more of actually is getting the dirt shovel ready and selling the project ready to go to a different builder. That's proven to be kind of, for us, like a more efficient model. So that's another thing that we're doing to pivot with the market currently.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, you got to be thinking about these things when you're getting into different market conditions. And that is definitely a valuable piece for people to know in case they get into the same thing that you were getting into. And now this is where things are headed. So, James, what I think is so interesting about the value that you bring is the community that you've been able to build with the elite investor and that community. Talk to us about the importance of investors and real estate professionals being a part of that community, and talk about that power, that phenomenal power of influence that can be a game changer for people when they are a part of it, whether it's a mastermind, whether it's a group that you've put together, or a local RIA. What is that influence and impact?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked. That's absolutely a good question. So our group is the center of excellence for collaboration in Tampa real estate. And so there was something really, really powerful when you get serious investors who are operating at a high level, who are willing to collaborate and help each other. And the solution to your problem, when you create a room like that, the solution to your problem is usually 0 or 1 degrees away. They're either in the group or somebody knows who can help solve your problem. And I think that, we have a lot of different strategies because we are a geographically focused mastermind group. And that leads to a ton of collaboration on deals. So you might have a wholesaler that brings a developer a deal. They get the project shovel ready. They bring it on GC. They build it. They get a listing agent from within the group. I mean, they're literally, it's really cool. It's actually really, really humbling to see. There are literally business partnerships that have been created in our very group. And I'm just so thankful for that.
Yeah, and I can see so many people that when they start going to these meetings and they're shaking hands, there's that in-person aspect of relationships that's just, it's not the same online or through Zoom or a call. Like deals get done when there's that person-to-person interaction. And when you're in those rooms, it can be such a game changer when you can bring in, a great example is you had Adam Whitney and Bill Allen recently come into there. And I'm sure the value that brought for your community is going to level everybody up. And then the deals that are going to just happen from that, and other things that are going to happen from that and spawn is amazing. And even a mastermind as well, like Family Mastermind. We got to connect in there. We got to connect at Nick Hamrada's event. I mean, when you're a part of these masterminds, what's the influence with that? Like, where have you seen the greatest impact?
I mean, I kind of just mentioned a second ago, but seeing people come together and actually get vulnerable with each other. So, something that Bill said at our last Q4 event, he was like, businesses don't do business with faceless businesses. People do business with other people. And I think that's something really important that I certainly take away and I think about often. We see that in the group commonly. People get vulnerable. They share what they have going on. And when there's something really, really cool with that, and it encourages everybody to kind of open up a little bit more. And when you start to lean in and other people are helping you solve their problem, it just lifts the collective. I think that's the most impact. That is also, I would add, like, that is the reason why we're invite only. Cause like, I'm so fixated on ensuring that every single person that comes in, we're just elevating the average and kind of like that, what's that saying? A rising tide lifts all ships.
Yeah.
We're really intent on making sure it's high caliber people, high character people. So that's where I would say we've seen the most impact. Everybody helping each other to win together.
Amazing. And it's always interesting to see groups kind of morph and change when new members come in, and where things kind of go, and just the value back afterwards, right? Like, you didn't know what to expect when you went in, and then you come out and it's just a game changer for people. James, one thing I know that you are big on is leadership, and your military background. First of all, thank you for your service. Thank you. Your military background has to have shaped your mindset for leadership. And you guys are on this mission to create more leaders and to impact the community that way. What are some things that you're doing and using from your experience in the military to help others with their journey and to have that leadership so that they can run their businesses, maybe start up their own communities and impact others throughout the state or country?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and thank you for your words of support. So I spent 15 years in the SEAL teams, and so that's a gauntlet of leadership. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about great leaders. I learned a lot from leaders who maybe I didn't want to emulate so much. So I think to answer your question really simply, I think the biggest thing that I took away from that is make sure you're fostering an absolutely elite culture in your organization. If you can do that, the right A players will flock in and they want to be a part of it. And there are nice people out there that may not need to be part of your organization, that don't have the right mindset for problem solving and really collaborating together. And, maybe those people don't need to be a part of your organization. But if you can ensure that you're maintaining an elite culture, and we could talk for hours about how to do that, but that's the main thing. Lead by example, foster an elite culture in your organization. The A players will stay and appreciate it.
Well, we got some time. Let's dive in on elite culture. I think that is something that has come up more and more on the show. And people that have been on have talked about how critical it is that you have that core mission, that you have the vision, and that you really you solidify that culture in your business. What are some of the steps people can take now that run businesses, whether small or high volume, that can bring that elite culture?
Oh man, I have this immediate answer. So I realized in 2024, I was getting asked these leadership questions consistently from other entrepreneurs. And so I created these 10 non-negotiable guidelines for elite leadership. And number one is get really great at leading yourself. Get really great at leading yourself. How are you going to expect to lead other people as part of your team if you can't even lead yourself well? So I think that comes down to discipline. And I spoke at an event earlier this week about this very topic. And somebody said, well, yeah, but how do you do that? I said, if you only do one thing, just remember this: do the things you say you will do. I think most of us know the things that we should be doing and we commit to those. But then when challenges come up and things kind of get in the way, your schedule gets busy, some things fall off. So do the things you say you will do. It's a choice. It's a choice. And if that starts to get a little gray, do as close to what you said you will do. Simple.
Yeah. And that right there can be a game changer for people, right? And I think just mapping this out for businesses, because a lot of people are just shooting from the hip and just going day by day, and it's just constant chaos. But when you start building a team together and you have your EAs and then you have your TCs and you have your other members, like, it's important to start implementing this. But like James, you're saying, it really starts with yourself, and it starts with what you're able to do. And one thing I know that you've mentioned is your ability to identify interesting characteristics about entrepreneurs, right? What some of the good ones are and some of the bad ones are, to make leaders who they are today. What have you noticed have been some good characteristics and some bad characteristics?
Yeah, I'll start with this. What I'm about to say is it's a double-edged sword. It's not necessarily bad, but at scale, it can be bad. So I've noticed a trend with entrepreneurs that they get really great, especially in the early days. And I think there's a monetary amount that it kind of corresponds to this, but they get really great at working in their business. And they are the solopreneur phase. And you can make $1 million alone per year. But I think people are in that kind of 250 to maybe $500,000 net range per year are kind of they're more likely to be in this category. And they get really good at being in their business, doing the tasks within the business. And so what happens is they start to hire, realize they haven't really grown as leaders over the years. And what happens is they have a culture. It kind of works. It's not super elite. It's you're hiring people and trading time for money. There's not really like a culture of teamwork there. And what I see happen, and this is I'll get to the point here. What I see happen is they consistently have to be integrated in the daily tasks of their business. And they're oftentimes coming in and like being the hero. You want to get yourself out of being the hero and feeling like you need to save the day as a leader. Because if you're doing that, it's highly likely that you're not actually empowering their team to perform the best in line with their highest purpose. I see that in entrepreneurs pretty consistently. What I noticed with entrepreneurs that's really, this might be like kind of dark, but what I see that's a little bit inspiring is the more hardship somebody had growing up, like the more they've contended with growing as a result of challenges. And, you see people with just a really troubled upbringing and not handed the best deal in life, not having the best hand of cards. And they've really made something incredible out of it. And I just think that's so powerful and so inspiring. So that's on the good side of some trends I know with some entrepreneurs. I guess to summarize that, some of the most successful entrepreneurs have had the most suffering. That's the dark part.
Wow.
So then that leads you to think, like, is suffering a prerequisite for success?
Makes you think, right?
Makes you think.
Well, like you're saying, that tough upbringing or that those bad experiences, back in the day have maybe translated to where you are now. There's definitely a grit to having gone through that, right? There's definitely that mindset. And it makes you tough today. It makes you have that thick skin. And it makes you think more about what you are doing and the kind of relationships you're making and how that translates to how you are with your team, how you are with your business. And there can be a lot of good from it. You got to be able to see the good, like you're saying, from what you've been through, and your ability to be able to form this community and form leaders from this is very impactful for everybody, especially anybody listening. And being a part of the SEAL team, I mean, like, that's the elite of the elite. Talk about elite. So you've seen like the elite leadership at a military level, and you've seen what that is, and you've taken that and brought it to what you're doing with your business today. And that speaks volumes. And I don't know anybody we've ever had on the show that has been on the SEAL team and that, moved into this and has actually talked about this before. It's really interesting.
I appreciate it. Yeah. I try to run my own team as much like a SEAL platoon as I can.
That's so cool. Couldn't imagine. I bet you have so many stories about being on the SEAL team, and that's got to be mind blowing and amazing.
I promise it's not as glamorous as you think. That's the one thing I can share. It's not as glamorous as you think. And looking back, like, I'm thankful I got to work with heroes every day.
Yeah, I'm sure. Absolutely. So you are always trying to grow your business. I'm sure every day James wakes up, you're thinking, how do we do this better? How do we do this more efficiently? How do we communicate more? How do we make everybody just better? And I know something that you're big on is finding the keys to fostering an elite team for business growth. What are some of the key things that we need to know that would help foster an elite team? Because, like, I got my assistant, I got an intake specialist, I have part-times that help on our team, and I'm thinking all the time about how do we always make them better, make them more elite like this. So what are those keys?
Yeah, a few things. So the first thing that comes to mind is find the right people, create an environment where you're providing them the resources and tools to succeed and removing all the obstacles. By the way, that's like directly from Dave Folk in Family Mastermind. If he sees this, shout out Dave.
Shout out Dave.
And so create a structure, even with pay, create a structure where the success of the organization also takes care of them. So find success with them and take them with you all the way. Take them with you all the way. That's the first thing that I would say. The other thing that I would say is I've found every time that I've had something kind of like I scratch my head in business, whether it's a partnership or something within my team, I'm like, how did that happen? And I realize it comes down to communication. So I think 98% of most issues can be resolved with upfront communication. And there's specifically one part of communication that I would kind of go deeper on here. I think it's uncommunicated assumptions. I'll give you an example. This is something really simple that a lot of people could probably implement. When I was hiring, I wouldn't tell people in the hiring effort that being punctual is really important to me. Be on time to meetings. It's a simple yes or no. I expect it. I expect it of myself. I expect it of you. We have a high delivery. We have high expectations. And you'd be surprised at how many people, like I didn't clarify that to, had trouble with that. Mm-hmm. So now it's like, well, now I'm not just going to assume and not communicate that. I'm going to clarify that that is the expectation. And I wanted to include something really simple for your listeners to maybe execute in their businesses. But whenever something goes wrong, take a look at what uncommunicated assumptions were present and just seek to learn from those and do better.
Yeah.
Those two things right off the bat, I would say.
Huge. Communication's big for our office. I mean, anybody that has been a part of our team knows that, like, we got to be on the same page with everything. And, being punctual, I'm definitely that type. Like when we say it's this time, it's this time. And that's what we're doing. Right. Like you said, it's this uncommunicated assumption that ends up being something that needs to be communicated. You need to explain the expectations. I know there's a lot of people that have high expectations and they assume everybody's going to know what everybody's expecting, but people just don't know. And I'm really glad you brought this up, James. When you're having team meetings and you're having these, some investors have every Monday, they have a team meeting, or every other Monday. What are some things that you're doing with your team besides talking about this? Like, what are some of the things that are going on, the internal discussions that you guys have that keeps you guys humming, that keeps you guys on the same page aside from communication?
Yeah, this is a good one. Seeking solutions. So everybody has their respective roles. One thing with my team that I really try to delegate down at the lowest level is don't just bring somebody a problem. Seek the solution, seek a recommendation. So I found as a leader, how I kind of implement that is asking questions. Hey, we have this going on. Okay, how would you like to proceed? What's your recommendation here? Right? If I hand out every solution every time somebody has a question, am I just having machines on my team? Like, I want to foster the growth of the individual and their problem solving skills in line with the purpose of the company and our core values and mission.
I love it. Critical thinking, right? Thinking through the problem. But you basically just said it, machines. I call it robots, right? I said, I'm like looking over something. I'm thinking, we're not robots. We got to really think through this problem. And I don't want to see the end result until there's been a lot of thinking through it, and then make them think through that project. Then let's go over it. I remember early story with one of my first mentors, Dennis. I remember in the beginning, I would always go to him and say, well, what's the answer? What's the answer? And one day he said, no, you figure it out first, then come to me and I'll tell you if you're right or wrong. And so going through that critical thinking part, I mean, it was communicated differently, but it's the idea of you got to have your team think through these solutions. Otherwise, like you're saying, what's the point? You're feeding something that isn't growing. What about like quarterly meetings? Do you guys get into any of that? Do you guys meet up at any point and discuss things about growth at that point?
Yeah, we do. One thing that I'm really big on is and this is just my opinion, some people may disagree, and that's cool. This works really well for me. So if you want your business to grow, you should be meeting every day. It's an opportunity to engage with your people, provide additional intent, provide additional clarity on any issues going on. You should be meeting every day. So we meet every single day, Monday through Friday, obviously. And then we also do more strategic meetings. We follow the level 10 agenda. We meet once a week for 90 minutes for that. That's more like long-term strategic, probably the next 90 days focused. And then we also meet quarterly to discuss trends, especially annually. We discuss some pretty big trends from the past year, any tweaks that we need to make. Something that I didn't mention earlier on the elite culture within your team is a big thing is you can't keep low performers after enough time. If you really identify that someone's a low performer, you cannot keep them around high performers. They will degrade the performance of everyone, including your high performers. So I failed to mention that earlier, but I want to throw it in there.
No, that's really good. Well, that takes experience too, right? Like when you're starting to see how it's impacting the others on the team, what is it? Fire fast, hire slow. And so when you're able to, identify where the lag is, that's where you as the leader need to take that action and make those steps.
And it doesn't mean I'm not willing to give somebody a second chance. We're human. People are going to make mistakes. I actually want my team to fail fast, right? I want to fail fast. Of the people that fail, I'm calling out my own failures the most in front of my team. I think that's important. I think that keeps you humble as a leader. But, failure, I'm not against failure. I'm against not learning the first time from our failure. And I am very against not taking initiative.
Yeah, being able to be a self-starter, right? Being able to take that initiative and do it. I agree with you on that. And like it kind of goes back to that uncommunicated assumptions. I feel like there's just some things that you really need to spell out and talk about it so people could understand where your style is, where you fit in this process. And
I have a tool for that. So I have a tool that breaks down by role. It's like the things that you should do and you don't ever have to tell me. And then the next tier is the things that you can do and tell me after. And then there's like this whole category that's like more kind of serious emergency things. I would like you to not do these things unless you talk to me first. Things that could have like a very lasting catastrophic effect on business if done poorly. So I think clarifying that, now it's no longer an assumption. And I'm not building robots here. I just want to clarify that. We actually have a principle on my team that is taken from the military: decentralized command and command by negation. So the whole principle of command by negation is, don't come to me asking me for my plan. You tell me your plan with all the information that you've gathered. And if I disagree with it, I'll simply say no. If I don't say anything, I'm good with it.
That's how I was brought up, right? There you go. Is this like the idea that you have a toolkit? Is this a PDF, a spreadsheet, or is this something that you guys keep internally, or is this something that you guys talk about at the Elite Investor Mastermind?
So this spreadsheet, the three different categories, this is something I talk about in my leadership program. So I have a thing called the Leadership Intensive. I rolled out that for the first time this year. We'll do the next session in June. But I have a program called the Leadership Intensive, which is designed to give entrepreneurs who already have some business growth and already have some teams who know they need to grow as leaders. That is a program specifically tailored for entrepreneurs, regardless of industry.
Well, that's huge. Let's definitely make sure we plug that for James in there. James, let's make sure we get that in there. What's the name again?
The Elite Investor Leadership Intensive. I'll get you the link here.
Okay, the Leadership Intensive. I mean, I can think of even just a handful of investors right off the top of my head that would probably love to be in something like that, right? Just because they want to take more leadership initiatives on their team because they've been growing from 2 to 20, or whatever it is, and just taking the reins on that. James, I got to do this session because this is all so valuable, right? Like the leadership aspect and how to be a better leader. It's huge. And even when we were at Family Mastermind and John Maxwell was talking about the different steps on leadership and what you need to implement, and all of it actually is so helpful for your business. You need it because you could be doing real estate all day, but all of what we're doing is running a business, whether it's a law firm or a business. It's leadership is everything. So everything you're talking about is fantastic. I do these questions on my show, signature questions. I feel like you'd be a great guest to do a few of these just because you have this background. What do you do to sharpen your negotiation skills when you're getting into deals? And how do you show that to your team so that they can implement this as well?
So you're talking about like specifically real estate deals?
Yeah.
Okay. So the deals that we're doing now are a lot different than the ones we were doing a few years ago. And typically they're larger now. And so when they're of that size, I'll have sometimes like some advanced knowledge of what the other party might be kind of motivated by. And now I do a little bit of preparation on the front end. So I'll try to identify maybe their pain point or their challenge, and I'll identify what tools that I have to solve it. The other thing that I do, and this kind of becomes more important, and I'll focus on doing it more the bigger the deal is I'll bounce my approach off of a colleague. So you already mentioned Adam Whitney. He's a very close colleague of mine. We talk multiple times a week. We have a couple business things going together. And so guys like that, I love to bounce ideas off of. I think it's important to kind of have a little bit of a counsel, some immediate friends that are in the space that you can bounce ideas off of. So that's what I would share. Having some high level colleagues that can give you a sounding board for your approach. That's what I'd say.
And having somebody like Adam, I mean, that's huge. I mean, he's doing things at a high level with Bill, and he's been doing the live events and the communities and deals himself. So absolutely, like having somebody to lean on to kind of bounce those ideas is a great idea. And having that tribe, right? That small tribe that you can lean on is fantastic. What about software? Like, how is your company leveraging software? Like, what are some software programs that you do so that you guys can be really efficient in your process?
I would actually say we could improve on this, straight up. Like, I don't mind admitting it. We can improve on this. We're in the middle of kind of helping somebody in family beta test a new CRM. So once that's fully ready, we plan to switch over to that. Right now, for a lot of our task tracking, we use Asana, which is it's good to a certain level, but I wish I had a little bit more functionality for us. So Asana is probably our hub for almost all, recurring tasks and the tasks that we have to accomplish on a day-to-day basis. So my operations manager, like, she is all up in Asana every single day.
Yeah, and I'm sure that as you guys will continue to grow, you'll have to lean on more of that software to help be more efficient, because investors talk about it all the time. The CRMs are really important so that you guys are cutting out the process, unnecessary steps that you would normally do, and then you implement it and let it go.
I think one more thing that helps with me is, like, if you've never messed around with Miro to kind of get some things that are in your mind, get them mapped out. I like Miro a lot. You can get, I think, 3 boards for free too. So you can check out Miro and use a few different products there. I created one on Miro that was like every single thing we do in business that actually makes money. And then I color coded it by like some of the areas we needed to work on. So stuff like that, I think, is pretty helpful at the owner CEO level.
I've never even heard of Miro before.
Miro. Yeah.
Miro. Okay, well, there you go. There's another little tool for people to leverage right there. Well, great, James. Software is definitely big. What advice would you give to investors that are just starting out or have been going through this for a year in terms of what to tackle for real estate deals?
Start going to your local meetups. Start going to your local meetups and forming relationships with the right people. It might also be a good idea to join. I mean, I'm in Tampa, so if you're in Tampa, you can take a look at ours. But regardless of your location, look at getting, like, you can pay for speed. You can pay for access to speed by getting into the right coaching or mastermind community. Consider that. If you have the budget for it, it will expedite your product. Excuse me. If you have the budget for it, it will expedite your progress. So consider doing that. We have a 21-year-old in our mastermind community, and he went from doing, I think, 100 something thousand total revenue in 2023 to doing about $250,000 of net income just in 1 year. And he's in multiple groups. He's in our group. He's paying for access. And if that dollar cost is $10,000, it gets overcompensated by the gain that he had, and it more than pays for itself with a positive ROI. So you can pay for access to the right rooms.
100%. I mean, the right rooms that you can pay for will give you great networking, great relationships, and lasting relationships as well. And then you never know where those relationships go to other relationships as well. So couldn't say enough about that as a great way to keep expanding, and going from 100 to 500,000 net. I mean, is right? Is that what it was?
I think it was like 150 to $250,000. So
250,000
150 in revenue, then to $250,000 net the following year.
That's amazing. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, he turned 21 this year. It's pretty crazy.
Wow. Yeah, that is really crazy. Well, James, there's got to be a lot of different challenges that you guys face, not just running the group or the community or just your business, but in real estate. I'm sure there's got to be challenges that you're always trying to overcome. What are some of the biggest challenges that you face doing what you do every day?
Well, we talked about a little bit of leadership, and like, even though I teach other people leadership, I'm always trying to grow as a leader as well. There's a paradigm in entrepreneurship of control versus freedom, and the more control you have, the less freedom you'll have. So if you're getting involved in this business to eventually have time freedom, but you want to be involved in every single decision all day, every day that makes an impact in your business, you won't have any freedom. So kind of the paradigm of the control with the freedom, while cultivating a really good culture and empowering your people to have the right standards in line with your vision, but not being controlling. I would say that's an ongoing challenge, kind of all the time. Yeah. More specifically, finding deals right now at the right entry price. That's also just a pretty simple challenge. We make a lot of offers, but right now we have like less than a 10% acceptance rate on offers, which is way lower than we have in prior years.
Yeah, and it's just navigating that market right now and just trying to figure out how do you get through that. And I'm sure those are challenges every day that you guys are just, how do we tackle this? How do we get through this? And it'll happen. James, you seem like an organized person. Like I could just tell, like you probably are the type that you have everything down in your office. Like you have your schedule, calendar, you know exactly where you're going to be. How do you stay organized? Because there's a lot of business owners that are just dealing with so many different things going on, fires that are popping up, emergencies, meetings, but you got to have it all together. What are those steps that you take? And you probably have this from your military experience as well. How do you stay organized with what you do?
Al, what I would tell you is I live out of my calendar. Like everything that has to happen, it goes in my calendar. If it doesn't go in my calendar, it's not going to happen. It doesn't really exist. That's how we really get off track really fast. So email and calendar, it's not any kind of like crazy over the top advice, but it works.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I love my calendar. My calendar is my life. I remember early on, this is a story for you, James. I remember when I was in college, it was all over the place. I had no structure with calendar. I wouldn't even, there'd be a violin lesson. I didn't even show up. And I remember my violin teacher back then, when I showed up finally, he said, you got to get yourself together with a calendar. And even then, and I think iPhones were just really starting to like come out like then. And I remember he said, hey, you know, scrolling, showing me you can add an event. And back then I didn't even care. And it wasn't really until I started my business that I realized that if it doesn't go on my calendar, it's not happening. And I need to block out things so I know what's going on. And I am religious about it. I am so dialed into that. And I think that is the best advice for people out there on how to stay organized is to use your calendar. If I have a call and I email and say, hey, we're doing this Monday at 1:30, I'm not even waiting for the person to respond. I just put it on the calendar. If we got to move it, we move it. But I live and die by that thing. And you're right. That's an important piece.
I have an admin VA, and the majority of my messages to her are just screenshots of like somebody confirming something for her to get it in the calendar, like over text.
Yeah, huge. Yeah, I get it. Well, James, this has been awesome to hear this stuff on leadership and growing a community and being a part of a community. I highly recommend anybody that's in the Tampa area, St. Pete, surrounding Sarasota, Pasco. You guys got to check out James's events. James, when are the events scheduled? Because I'm sure as they come up throughout the year, are they quarterly? Are they every month? What does this look like?
Yeah, they're quarterly. We have it mapped out on our website on Poseidon25.com. There's like a module you can go to get plugged into our events. So we have them each quarter, and you can go to the website to check out the dates.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys got to check this out. You guys got to find out more about this and his leadership initiative, which is gotta be a game changer for a lot of people. James, awesome stuff. As I do at the end of my show, I do a segment called Final Words, Final Thoughts. That's leaving the audience with something to really take action on, implement, or just leaving those lasting words for everybody. So final words, final thoughts, James Lascara.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Al. Thank you so much for having me on the show. You know, what I would share is most of your audience, I would gather, are probably entrepreneurs, small business owners who are looking to grow. And assuming that's the case, elite contributors in your organization, they're the kind of people that want coaching, feedback, guidance, accountability, clear expectations. As a leader, you are in the business of people. You are in the business of people. And so you have an obligation to provide your people with that. And so do it. That's what I would share. I encourage you to do it. Awesome. That can be in an encouraging way too.
Boom. James, awesome stuff. People need to come more to your events. I can't wait to see them take off. Keep bringing that team that's growing, right? Keep bringing the right people and finding those right people in the room. And it was great to have met you at Nick's event and more events at Family Mastermind coming up and any other family events that come up. So keep doing what you're doing, James. And thanks so much for coming on my show today.
Thanks, Al. I'm honored.
You got it. I'll see you soon at a family event.
Sounds good.
You got it, man. All right, everybody. You heard it right there from James Lascara. Incredible stuff about leadership, growing your business, and being a part of communities. And I couldn't say enough about being involved in your communities, actually going. It's not Zoom, not phone calls, actually going and shaking hands, and being a part of a group can change everything. If you are in this area in Tampa, St. Pete, you got to go check out James's event. There's a lot of people that are going. They bring in a lot of big names, a lot of names that will help transform your business and your mindset. And if you haven't heard about James's events, the Elite Investor group that's in Tampa and his leadership initiative, you got to check that out and find out more. And this is another episode on the Al Nicoletti Show. If you hopped in the middle, you guys got to go back in the beginning to hear all about James's story and his background. I mean, a lot of people's journeys and where they are today were shaped from their background, where they came from. And it's always important to know that, because it really helps paint the picture of the guests. And these guests are bringing the value to you. And so if you missed any of this episode with James, go back, rewind, definitely check this out, and scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen where you can get everything from our YouTube channel, iTunes, Spotify, you name it. Find it all right there. It's another one on the Al Nicoletti Show, another one in the books, another Wednesday night. So we will see you all next Wednesday, 9 p.m. Eastern. You know, another great guest is coming up. You don't want to miss it. Have a great night, everybody. Take care.